Let's preview the Sun Belt Championship game with Herd Nation. It's Locked On Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sun Belt, your teams every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, yesterday's episode, we previewed the Sun Belt Championship with our buddy Nick Domain from Ragin Review. So let's give Herd Nation their chance. We got Josh Stowers talking Marshall, thundering her. Josh, thanks for hopping on Locked On Sun Belt, and how are you?
Good, man. Appreciate you having me.
I appreciate your time. All right, we will get to the elephant in the room at the end. All right, we're not going to ignore that, but let's talk what happened on the field this year. Looked back at it. Marshall was picked 5th in the East. What was your thoughts going in? Because I have to look back. I probably didn't pick them much higher than that. I'm a big Charles Huff fan, but the big question was at quarterback.
Yeah, going into the season, we obviously had a lot of questions. Quarterback being the primary one. You had Stone Earl and Braxton. Both in practice. Stone was a little bit of a late arrival. Braxton was here in the spring, so that kind of put those two, maybe neck and neck out of the gate. But for someone that attended practice, in the preseason and leading up to game one, like it was clear to me, obviously, that Stone was the better of the two at that point. Obviously as the season went on, things gravitated more towards Braxton, and it has played well. I mean, he's been very efficient for us. He's done very well. And, obviously it begs the question, if he starts in game one, do things turn out differently? Hindsight's 2020, so it's hard to say. But, obviously that was a huge question, going in, and things have been answered since then. But as far as the season goes, being picked 5th, preseason rankings anymore are kind of weird. And in the sense that with the portal, it's hard to really know what any team has. Mm-hmm. There's so much turnover in college football now that, some schools, I'm Marshall. I think we had like 44 new kids this year. So, right. And some schools had more. So it's hard to know what teams will have. So I don't put a lot into preseason rankings. Other than, just being able to talk about it.
Well, those are all the coaches. And the coaches, like you said, Marshall had 44 transfers. So Charles Huff doesn't even know his own team. Meanwhile, someone else's team.
Exactly. So, but as far as the season goes, it's had more highs than lows. Obviously, we had a couple lows. The Southern game being the lowest of the low. But going on the road to Ohio State, going on the road to VT. Those were going to be tough games, obviously. And not a lot of people figured us to win those games. So, I had us pegged as an 8-4 team. I thought just based off of what we had, what we returned, and what I saw in spring and in preseason, I thought we had a chance. Conference play is so weird because there's always a game where you struggle. It seems like, and to be honest, we didn't really have that this year. We had the meltdown at Southern, but we didn't have a game where we just like we were out of sorts. So that was surprising.
Well, yeah, you didn't really struggle until the last 5 minutes of that game.
Right. Well, exactly. Actually, it's like 7:02 or something crazy like that. But not to be so pinpoint, but
I thought it was like 4:56, and it was like an 18-point game.
It was terrible. But yeah, like I said, I had us at 8-4. I thought 9-3 was probably our ceiling. I went 8-4 just because I thought 9-3 was a ceiling and 7-5 was probably the floor. So I wasn't overly surprised. And like I said earlier, hindsight's 2020, but I'm being dead serious when I said that. I could probably pull text and show you where I had texted other people and said that. But I was not overly surprised. There were bits and pieces to it that you're like, oh man, I didn't imagine AJ Turner was going to break out like he did, and I would have really liked to have seen, where he would have ended up had he not had some injuries, middle of the season, a little bit later in the season, kind of slowed him down a little bit. But, you knew Mike Green was going to be a stud. You saw some of that last year. And the guy just continues to be a stud. I mean, he's, I think he tied the Sun Belt record for sacks in a season last Saturday, and he's one away from breaking Marshall singles. He's one away from tying the single season record at Marshall. So he's 2 away from breaking it. So, but one of the comments that I'll never forget was, last year, Owen Porter, who was very good in his own right for Marshall.
Sure.
We were talking to him on the sideline one day, and he said, Mike made a play in practice, and Owen said, you guys are going to forget about me next year. And that's probably a little bit extreme because Owen was really good in his own right, but Mike has been a star for Marshall for sure.
Talking to Josh Stowers, herdnation.com on Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. All right, so let's talk about, we were talking about Georgia Southern. How did they go about bouncing back from what was, an absolutely brutal loss? I mean, there's losing and then there's that.
Yeah. I think they've done a really good job. The staff and the players both have done a really good job this year of just playing 1 week at a time. And I know that's real cliche to say that, but I really do think that they've done that. And, I've been doing this for, 10, 12 years now. And you always hear coaches talk about there's 2 seasons. You have your out of conference and then you have conference play. And, something I've heard this year, a couple of the players say, we had 12 seasons, and basically it was each week was a new season, and they kind of were able to separate that. And I think that helped them. Obviously that was, like I said, that was the lowest of the low this year. And so being able to come back off that showed some resiliency, for the staff and for the players. And we have some good leaders. We're talking about Braxton and Stone earlier, those 2 guys, every time one comes off the field, it's the other one who's, congratulating him or beating him in the sidelines first. And I think that's a real key part, because that's such a position of focus. It doesn't matter what level of football you're playing. If you have a quarterback, you can be competitive, I think, in most cases. And to see, your starting quarterback and your backup quarterback have such a good relationship and just be so excited for one another, I think that shows great leadership. And then you had some older guys on defense as well. Like I said, Mike, JJ Roberts has been really good for us in the secondary this year. Jaden Yates, he's young, but he's very mature. And, he's got some pedigree about him. His dad played at Marshall. He was a really good linebacker in his own right. But so Jaden has been a really good leader for a young guy too. So it's just been the leadership, I think, is what was able to allow them to do that. And I think that started with the staff, and it just leaked down into the guys.
All right, let's take a time out. We're talking with Josh Stowers from herdnation.com. We're talking a Sun Belt championship game. We're previewing the Marshall Thundering Herd. We'll talk Braylon Braxton or Mike Green. We'll talk Charles Huff, of course. And then we got to talk Thundering Herd versus the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns. We will do that after I tell you about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. We're talking Sunbelt Championship game with Josh Stowers of herdnation.com. All right, who's more important, Braylon Braxton or Mike Green?
That's a tough question.
And if you don't think I'm going to make this a short and make sure I tag each one of them.
I will go with the quarterback. Like I said earlier, I think if you have a quarterback, you can win.
Yeah.
You can be competitive in just about any game. And nothing against Mike. I mean, that guy has been amazing this year for us, like I said, and I look forward to see what he does, this Saturday and beyond Saturday. We saw a thing today. The Athletic had him, I think, 30th to the Buffalo Bills, which is, pretty impressive in its own self. Obviously, there's a lot of time between now and April, but still yet. I would say Braxton. I'll say the quarterback. Let me say that. It's just there's so much control there. I mean, and that's, like I said, Braxton has been very good. I mean, he's and something I think beyond that is I think Coach Daggy has done a really good job of highlighting what Braxton does well. And they run the ball. I think we're a shade over 200 yards a game, on the ground, and we've been really efficient with the ball. We're, I think, +9 in turnovers, which I think that points to his efficiency, and not just his, but the team itself. If you look back, there's a reason Tom Brady's the GOAT, and obviously I'm not comparing the two, but when people talk about the GOAT of the NFL, they talk about Tom Brady. So I'll say the quarterback.
And Aaron Donald was really, really good.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about Mike Green and the defense. They are 2-0 and they've gone on the road. And Josh, we haven't done this before, so I'm a big believer. You went on the road. Doesn't matter the score. Doesn't matter how we got there. Winning on the road in any sport, but especially college sports, is big. And they went on the road not once but twice, ODU and JMU. And the defense did not play particularly well in either case. They did come away with 2 victories. What has gone on with the defense the last 2 weeks?
ODU did a really good job of just keeping us on edge. It felt like, their quarterback, and his name eludes me right now, but
it's Colton. It was Colton Joseph. I think that's who played against.
Yeah, Marshall. And for a young kid, that kid is pretty talented.
Yeah.
They did a really good job of just keeping us, kind of on skates almost. I mean, they ran that option play off the end, and they were able to hit some throws across the middle. And to be honest, the last 2 weeks teams have ran away from Mike. I can probably count on 2 hands, especially on Saturday, because it was something I paid attention to after the ODU game. How many times, probably maybe even 1 hand, how many times they ran at Mike and directly at him. Now ODU did run that option, and there weren't a lot of times where Mike made the play, but it's when it comes to that option stuff, everybody has an assignment, and he played his assignment. It was just either somebody else didn't play it, or we were in the wrong defense, or whatever else you want to call it. But as far as running directly right at Mike, that is something the last 2 weeks both teams avoided.
That's interesting, because usually against the pass rusher, you do run right at him. Actually,
yeah, they did not, and and obviously the guy's getting. I mean, as the seasons went on, he's been getting chipped by running backs. They'll double him at the tight end and things like that. So it's, and you've noticed that the last 2 weeks, just that. I mean, obviously that was a focus for them, was to make sure that he did not beat them by himself, and he obviously had that one sack there later in the game last week, which was huge, and that kind of obviously helped turn the momentum a little bit too in our favor. But the defense as a whole, we were banged up a little bit last week. I mean, I think we had 3 or 4 starters out. Landon Watson at linebacker was out. Jabari Ishmael was out. Josh Moten, I believe, was out for the game. He was. Takezi Legs missed the first half. So, I mean, we were shorthanded a little bit.
Okay.
And
see, some people will think that excuses. To me, those are reasons. There's a reason that they start and the other guys don't. So a lot of people, coaches will be the next guy up, but the next guy is coming off of the bench for a reason. But go ahead.
Exactly. And, obviously I think that influenced, how we played, last week. But, yeah, it just felt like we came out so against JMU, I'm talking now, it just felt like we came out flat. I mean, like, we couldn't get anything going
17-0 flat.
Offensively. And, it just, we kept throwing the defense out there and, give some credit to them. I mean, like, it was only 17-0, even though I don't think we had a first down until like the 5-minute mark of the second quarter or something something crazy like that. So, give credit to them. I mean, they kind of kept us in the game. I mean, and obviously in the second half, they played very well. We as a team, I should say, played very well in the second half. But
can we go over that one possession? Can we go over that one possession? Because that was insanity, right? So this is all one possession, right? We have the bad snap, and Braxton throws it up for grabs, and it's dropped. Okay. So it should have been an interception. Then we have a fake field goal. Same possession, right? Play clock or not, 0-0, whatever. First down. All right. Next play. Fumble on the goal line. Did Braxton recover it or didn't he? They gave it back to him. And then he finally gets in on fourth down. That's all one possession. That wasn't across the entire game. That was across like 8 plays.
So, first of all, the ball that he just chucked up, he was lucky to say the least. Yeah. But the fake field goal, and again, like, I attend practice and stuff from time to time, and
right.
I have never seen in the 4 years of attending practice, under Huff, I have never seen him practice that play. And like as soon as he snaps the ball and he just, you see Reese kind of veer off to the side and take off, I was just like, oh my God. And like, I'm not sure that those are the words I necessarily used, but
sure.
and then you just see him take off, and then he's obviously right there. I mean, right on the line basically. But on a 4th and 9, I mean, like, there's not a soul that expected that.
Well, that's why it's a good fake, right? Yeah,
100%.
3, they're going to be ready for the fake.
Yeah, and it was an incredible call, and credit Huff and Coach Galante for that. It was a great call.
I'll also say this. It's really important. I'm presuming it was a tight end at the end, not to hold, because he's got one guy to block. And if he hangs on too long, it's going to be a holding penalty. So he did a good job of blocking and not holding.
And to be honest, it was pretty close. I mean, like, if they would have thrown the flag, I probably wouldn't have been surprised. But right. You're totally right, because I mean, that guy's coming free basically.
Yep.
So it was. I couldn't believe that. And then obviously, like you said, you get down there and then you fumble. You feel like you're at the lowest of lows then. And they went to the review, and I'm just sitting there, as just a classic normal fan. Like, I'm just pessimistic about it. I'm just sitting there thinking, oh, this is going to go the other way. Like, we're not going to get this back. And
it looked like Braxton recovered it, but the more you looked at it, like, did he ever have possession of it when he was down? That was the only thing.
Yeah. And then, obviously then we get the ball, and then, we just get stuffed. Just like, and it was like, what are we doing here? And obviously he got in on 4th down, but that was and the thing about it was, like, that wasn't even like the just that the red zone in general for Marshall that game was just insane. I mean, like, it was just crazy. So that was, I don't know if I'd call it entertaining as a Marshall fan, but it was something for sure.
Well, as someone who had to go to bed to get up to go to work the next morning, thinking that it was going to be Georgia Southern and we weren't going to have to worry about a coin toss, I get a text message. When do you think they're going to announce the coin toss or the computer rankings, I guess? I was like, what are you talking about? Like, oh my God, what happened? So it was a lot of fun going back to watch that game. All right, we'll come back. We will talk about the elephant in the room. Charles Huff, is he coming or going? And we'll preview the Sun Belt Championship game, what Josh thinks about the Thundering Herd taking on the Cajuns in Lafayette. We will do that right after I thank all the subscribers. It's amazing what a so-called coaching search or coaching carousel can do. We've had like 50 subscribers in the last couple of weeks because we have a lot to talk about, whether it's Southern Miss or Marshall or now App State. We appreciate everybody doing it. We got National Signing Day, which we're not going to get to. Eventually, we'll get back to basketball. It has been a wild ride here, and it is not over yet. So really do appreciate everyone's support. We're going to be very close to 1,700 subscribers by the end of the week. Keep it going. We may have an outside shot. I guess we're going to be looking towards 1,800 by the end of the year. Maybe we get to that drive for 2025 and get over 2,000 by the new year. But really want to thank everybody for doing it, and keep those coaching search coming. All right, let's wrap things up with Josh Stowers from herdnation.com before we preview the Sun Belt Championship game against the Cajuns. I mean, this is the craziest coaching search, whatever is going on there in Huntington and Hattiesburg, that I've ever seen. From he's still coaching Marshall. He apparently has a deal in Hattiesburg, and Marshall may already have the new coach ready to go. That's insane. So let's back it up. How did we get here? Why did we not have an extension? Coaches do not coach in their final year, mostly because of recruiting. And though I would say it's not the same as it was before, because, your roster basically is turning over 50% every year compared to, a handful of guys or maybe two handfuls of guys. So that's very different these days. But how and why did we enter 2024 with Charles Huff entering the last year of his deal after going to 3 bowl games the previous 3 years?
Well, I think it goes back a couple years, and over the course of the 4 years, that he's been here, let's say 3, to be honest, because the 4th's not completed yet. He's been offered a couple times, and it was a situation where, I think he just bet on himself a little bit, just to see where things would play out, and credit him. If you don't believe in yourself, you're probably not going to get very far in life. So I can respect that. Heading into this season, his record wasn't. I mean, he was a shade over 500. I mean, I want to say like 22-17 or something like that. And those numbers may be a bit off, but nonetheless, he was 1-2 in those bowl games. So, it's hard to extend someone after 3 completed seasons and seeing, where you're at. And again, you're going into a year where, you've got 40-some new kids. There's just so many questions in place. It would be hard, if I were the AD, it would have been hard for me to extend him, just to be honest. So, I kind of agree with not extending him at that point, and kind of, let things, play out and see. And in that case, Marshall was kind of gambling on it. I mean, themselves, because, if he goes out and has a great year, which they had a pretty great year. I mean, it could be, I would say had a very good year, and it could be great if they win Saturday.
Sure.
So you make the gamble, does the guy get a chance to go to a bigger school? And, if he does, then he just walks away with no money in your hand, and you're back to square one. So, Marshall definitely gambled themselves there, by not extending him prior to the season. But at this point, it's hard to say, much more than that in terms of, while we're at, 12 games into the season now, and still nothing's been done. Obviously there are a lot of rumors out there,
I'll start a new one. Like you said, he bet on himself, and all of a sudden there's a Power 4 job open up in the same state. So not knowing the politics of West Virginia, Lafayette, or the Cajuns, Louisiana went through the same thing with Billy Napier, and no way was LSU going to hire Billy Napier. Just wasn't going to happen, wasn't going to be allowed. Would West Virginia ever hire the Marshall head coach?
I mean, you would hope that if someone was so successful that, that Pride you would not allow Pride to get in the way of that. I mean,
it would in Louisiana. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and it very well may in this situation too. I would say if the old blood was still in play at Marshall or at West Virginia, I would say most certainly not. You got some new blood in place now in both places, and some of that, and especially where the two schools are not playing anymore. The rivalry has kind of subsided a little bit. fans from both schools would still like to see them play. They used to play every year in basketball. They called the Capital Classic, and that went away. And I would love to see them play every year. I mean, WVU obviously holds the a ridiculous edge to the series, considering we never beat them. But
okay.
I would still like to see him play because I think it's just a good thing for the state, and I think it's good for both universities. And I like competition myself, so I like the idea of it. But to answer your question, I don't know. Like I said, with the new blood in place, you would hope that pride would not get in the way of that. I mean, if I were a school and and there was a guy 3 hours down the road from me currently that's winning and having success, and I can offer him more money and more NIL money and whatever else you want to call it, I would at least entertain the idea. Whether you did or didn't, that's up to you. Clearly.
Someone who understands West Virginia,
right? Familiar with the area. I mean, he's from Virginia, so I mean, this kind of like, I wouldn't call it the tri-state necessarily, but within reason. So, but yeah, I don't know. But to get back on, on par with, the Southern Miss thing and all that, obviously there are rumors out there. I mean, we'll play this weekend and see where things, fall, come Sunday or Monday. It's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of chatter on our message board, and there's a lot of chatter on social media. A lot of it's hearsay. So,
Can you draw it out another week? I could use another 150 to 200 subscribers. You need to draw it out another week.
I'll pass that along to Coach Huff and the administration.
Yeah.
So, no, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I wish him well no matter what. And I want to see him win Saturday for sure. I mean, I'm a Marshall fan myself, clearly, but if this is his last chance on the sidelines at Marshall, I want to see him go out on top. Clearly, it would be our first Sun Belt championship. So, go hurt in that aspect.
All right, so let's wrap it up. Let's talk about this football game. Cajuns are one of the more balanced teams in there in terms of offense and defense. I think they're like second in both in terms of scoring and yardage and such. Marshall is just below them in a couple of spots, although they are down there a little further in total defense. Probably a lot has to do with Ohio State and Virginia Tech, but then the last 2 weeks weren't great either. First of all, how healthy is AJ Turner? And we'll start there. And then what do we expect from the game?
He went out again last week. I mean, he has that, foot issue of some sort. It looks like, lower leg, I'll call it that. He went out last week, late in the game. And fortunately enough, Jordan Houston come in and played really, really well. He had, some big
Mm.
on second and third down that put us in good position to extend the drives. And, and he's a guy that can catch the ball in the backfield. There was one play there late, I think it was late in the fourth quarter, maybe even overtime, where actually I think it was the fourth quarter, because I think it was when we were driving to kick to attempt the game-winning field goal. And, it's like, you just expect him to keep the ball on the ground, and Houston, runs a route and he's 13 yards downfield wide open. And, meanwhile I'm sitting there thinking, God bless, don't throw the ball. And then, Braxton turns it loose and it's a big gain. So, again, Coach Huff and Coach Deggy know what they're doing. And I'm just sitting here on the couch, watching the game. But, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I hope AJ is healthy. Like I said, early in the year, that guy was, just tearing it up. I mean, my God, he was averaging 10 yards a carry through like 4 games. I mean, it was just stupid. But obviously he has been slowed a little bit as the years went on, just, from the injury itself. But the good part about that is like, you got Jordan, you got Ethan Payne, and you got, Braylon, who's been running the ball very efficiently himself, and in a lot of cases, he's been probably our most effective short yardage guy. I mean, he's a big body, and when you can run the quarterback like that, and it's literally 11 on 11. So, that usually gives the offense an advantage in that case. But I hope he's healthy.
All right. So, I mean, technically both teams are playing with their backup quarterbacks, although neither your regular backup quarterbacks. Braxton has been playing for more than a minute, and Chandler Fields has been with the Cajuns for 5 years. So he's been there for a long time as well and has started his share of games. When you're looking at this game, what are the keys for Marshall?
I think just stay in our lane. I mean, do what we've been doing. Ian Foster has been incredible on kickoff returns for us. I mean, field positions have been very key for us. I mean, I think he leads the country in kickoff returns now. So, I mean, I think his average is maybe a shade over 33 yards or something like that. It's in the low 30s. But as of last week, I think he finally qualified to register for the country leader. That's obviously been big for us. The turnover margin. I mean, we're +9. I think we're maybe tied for 10th in the country. So that's been big. Like I said, efficiency has been very, very key for us this year. And just do what we do best. I mean, don't make mistakes. I mean, again, penalties. We are one of the least penalized teams in the country this year in terms of yardage. So that's been really key for us. That's kept drives alive and obviously helped keep the other team off the field. When you're not committing penalties, it helps you on either side of the ball. So and just play good defense. I mean, play better defense. Let's say that. I watched Louisiana play this past weekend. That was really the first chance I've had to watch them play. They're big. I mean, they're physical and they run with authority and the one wide receiver, his name starts with an L. That guy was impressive.
I don't know how to say his last name, but Lance Legendre, that's not how you say his name, but yeah. Lance.
But a big kid, obviously, physical himself, and I mean he can run. I was impressed by him, and not just his physical nature, but he was smart. I mean, on that one play, I mean, he scrambled around a little bit, and Fields ended up finding him there in the end zone. But Marshall's got to get off the field on third down. I mean, that's hurt them the last 2 weeks. I should say in the first half of last week and against ODU, we just did not get off the field on third down like we have been. And we got to get off the field on third down, control the ball, protect the ball, and play good on special teams. And I think we'll have a good shot. Obviously, I think they're 5.5 point favorites. I think going into the weekend, which you always hear people talk about having home field advantage is a 3-point thing.
Great.
So yeah, you figured 2.5 points, you're looking at a field goal difference. So
sure.
When it's that close, it's hard to call a game.
Well, it's a turnover game when it's that close.
Right.
I mean, you're talking cliches, but they're cliches for a reason. Although the Cajuns, this is interesting. So Cajuns are really good with turnovers as well. And they're really good at kickoff returns. Robert Williams has been filling in for Zylan Perry, and they're both very good. So it would be amazing if we had, 2 different huge kickoff returns, one for each team.
Yeah. Obviously, the elephant in the room plays here too a little bit. I mean, you worry, is that going to be, are we going to be able to block out that noise?
I mean, it's noise during the week, but is someone going to be thinking about that? It's 3rd and 4. Boy, is Huff coming back? No, I can't imagine that being a problem.
You would certainly hope not. I mean, it's just a matter of, just like I said earlier, they've done a really good job of playing things week to week. So I'm hoping that's, winning a championship, obviously. If you can't get excited for that and get pumped up for that, then you're probably doing the wrong thing in life.
Yeah. I think it's been a minute since Marshall's had a 10-win season. So, yeah.
2015 off the top of my head, maybe.
Okay. Almost
we
10
went
years.
10 we went 10-4 that year. That was coming off of 2014. That was when we won Conference USA championship. I want to say that was our last 10-win season.
Okay.
I may be wrong on that just off the top of my head, but I want to say that was it.
It's been a
But
minute.
yeah, and it's Marshall. For the longest time, the motto here was we play for championships, and that's kind of filtered out a little bit. But
well, the problem with that is, Josh, and we got to go, but so does everybody else in the East, right? App State plays for championships, JMU plays for championships, Georgia Southern plays for championships. Everyone can't play for championships every year. That's the problem in the Sun Belt East.
These are facts, but I don't. I try not to pick games, at least out loud, or So again, I'll just say go Herd, and I'd like to see us hoist the trophy on Saturday.
He's Josh Stowers from HerdNation.com on Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Really appreciate your time, Josh. Enjoy the football, and thanks again for hopping on Locked On Sunbelt.
Yes, sir. Thank you.